Hi, Dan.
Hey, can I just say the music that as the countdown happens always makes me so nervous. Like, it's
Right?
like,
What if we
okay, here
mess
it
up?
comes.
What's going to happen? I know. I totally agree. I 100% agree, actually. How are you? What's new? Tell me everything.
Oh, nothing. Nothing's new for me. I'm excited and getting ready to go see Rent.
I know it's final preview of Rent here at OPA tonight, so we're super excited about that. So there's a lot of like my anybody who doesn't know the layout of my office, my computer sort of faces the door, and so I'm like watching like hubbub. Like there's just like people walking by all the time. But anyway, so Dan, we were going to have Josh Penzel this week, but he had something come up and he had to move. So we have somebody equally great in his place. Dan, Dan is in the flight path of Hill Air Force Base, so he just muted his microphone. I love that for you, Dan. Anyway, so we're super excited this week because we get to welcome one of my favoriteest peoples in the world, who is a self. We found out earlier that the excerpt that it showed on Facebook said self-proclaimed ... So it never actually showed what she's self-proclaimed as. So now I think that it's going to be great fun for people to figure out what she's self-proclaimed as.
Open to interpretation.
Right. But she really is, she is a volunteer professional. A professional volunteer is what she calls herself. And she does lots of volunteering around the state and with arts organizations and stuff like that. And it's Danielle. Let's welcome Danielle. Hi, Danielle.
Hi. I will totally be self-proclaimed. This is my cult. Volunteering is my cult, and I welcome all of you to join me in it.
Danielle, I will say, does more volunteering than any single person I've ever met in my whole entire life.
Well, I do call myself more a competitive volunteer as opposed to professional, because it's all about being the one who does the most.
Oh, okay. Competitive volunteering. I love this.
No.
So, Danielle, tell us about you and like your background and all of the things.
All of the things. Well, as far as like volunteering, I do consider myself a professional volunteer, but it's something that I've just been doing for a long time. And luckily I've ended up in the arts world when it comes to volunteering, but mostly doing arts festivals and things like that. And starting out as somebody who pours beer at an arts festival and runs a little kids area, I've turned into the director of a festival, and that's all through volunteering. So I do a lot of work with local artists in the community, and it's just been great. But I originally started out doing like Race for the Cure and things like that with the Cancer Society. And then I moved on to, as far as being in helping out in Ogden, I was at the Ogden Outreach Center, which is now like Youth Futures and stuff like that. And then somehow I got into doing things with Goal Foundation and marathons, and then it turned into arts. And that's just sort of where I found my own little community of what I enjoy doing. And
okay, so you said that you started off by pouring beer and running a kids zone. Was that simultaneous? Was it beer in the kids zone?
It depends on the festival, but for the most part, no. I remember just I had always done like volunteer like work, I said, with like other companies, but as far as arts, I was actually at the Utah Arts Festival one day, and a friend of mine has his aunt who runs the volunteers, and they just didn't have anybody to pour beer. And so they're like, hey, can you just come pour beer for us? And I was like, sure. And it was so fun. I came back like the next day, and then the next year, and then I added Park City onto that, and then the Urban Arts Festival. And I just became, I don't even drink beer, but I can pour it like crazy at a festival. And I officially have, my Utah liquor license permit and things like that, just so I can do those things. But then at an Ogden festival, my first year volunteering with the Ogden Arts Festival, I just helped run the kids zone,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What got you involved to begin with? Like, why did you decide you were going to start volunteering?
I think a lot of it, boredom and the impact it does help with the community. I mean, volunteering is what community is, whether it's you progressing and helping your community or you finding who your community is by being part of this organization or this group. And like I mentioned before, it was all about, at the time, things that were going on in my life. It was all about Race for the Cure and doing stuff for the American Cancer Society. And then when that was no longer as essential in my personal life, it became, well, what can I do in Ogden? Oh, there's outreach in the LGBTQ community at the time. There was no outlet for the kids. And so I, helped out with their after school program. And then it became, well, what can I do labor wise? Like I was in all these jobs that required me sitting at a desk, and I loved the idea of just going and putting up fencing for marathons and races. And that just sort of all floated itself. But the big thing, I mean, I really did it for the t-shirts. You get a free t-shirt for anything and everything you do when it comes to volunteering. I have not bought a t-shirt and I don't know how long. So I like to say it was because I wanted to help and blah, blah. It's the t-shirt.
As people who often get shirts when they do shows, I can attest to the number of t-shirts I own that I have never worn or worn once in my life.
Yeah.
In fact, most of them got turned into a quilt for me by my mom. And then now there's enough to make like 8 more quilts. And I don't know, like, I'm like, everybody gets a quilt with old t-shirts. I don't know what to do about these things. Okay.
That's a little disturbing, Brandon. I don't know if I want a quilt of your old t-shirts.
He says he hasn't worn them though, so.
You'd love it, Dan. Don't say
Which ones, though? Which ones? All of them? Some of them?
I'll pick perfect ones for you. I'll pick the best show shirts just for your Dan Tate quilt.
I'm sure you would.
Yeah.
Danielle,
okay. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you. You said something during when you were talking that made me want to ask a question. You said that, I can't remember if it was volunteering is community or community is volunteering. What about volunteering creates such a strong community?
I think it depends on the organization, but yes, you volunteer for your community, but through my progression of volunteering for things, like I did the marathons, I did the outreach, I did the cancer fundraising, but finding the volunteering in the art world, that became my community. And that was sort of where I decided to hold my hat and wear multiple name tags. And that was just where I found my fit. So the art world through volunteering became what my community is. And now I serve on the Utah Cultural Alliance Foundation as the board president, and that is a statewide art organization. I'm on the board at the Egyptian Theater in Ogden, and that's an art organization, and then running the Ogden Arts Festival. It all happened through volunteering. That's my community. And now I don't do the other things as much because that's not where I feel the passion.
Okay, so my question to you, for anybody who, volunteering takes time, and all of commitment and things like that. Why did you never sort of transition from volunteering for all of these really great organizations into working for them? Like, what would be different for you if you did? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And I think a lot of it was because the volunteering, that's what I did for fun. And I did not want to overcross work and play because I really enjoyed it. And I didn't want it to diminish my capacity for loving doing it. And I still, even though I do some of these higher end, and I consider them more like skills-based volunteering when you're serving on a board and you're providing some sort of specific element as opposed to just doing labor. I still do the beer stuff though. I still do Utah Arts Festival. I still do Park City when I can. And that's just keeps me a little bit grounded, but I didn't want to, I was worried that it would affect my pleasure. If that became my daily life, it would no longer be fun.
So I was reading in preparing. Wow, nice work, Brandon. In preparing for this interview, I was reading up on volunteering statistics. That word. I'm out, guys. It's just like, listen, we're opening a show. It's been a long week. I can't say words. Anyway, the percentage of population that volunteers is steadily about 25% of the population in the United States volunteers. So there's 75% of the population that is not volunteering. And I wonder if you can give us ideas on why you think people don't volunteer.
I think a lot of it might have to go back to that community feel. Like maybe you don't feel like you can because you have to start somewhere, and it takes a big personal push to be like, I'm just going to sign up. I'm going to go to an organization I like. Most nonprofit organizations have somewhere on their website on how you can volunteer. And you just have to take that step and do it. Make sure it is your community, and then you'll be accepted. But I think the hesitation is a big part of it. And a lot of people don't know about the free t-shirts, but I think it's really about hesitation and things like that. But in Utah, the national statistic may be 25%, but Utah is so much higher. Like Utah is #1 for volunteers, and there's so many opportunities. You look at the marathons and stuff, and they have thousands upon thousands of volunteers for like that one event. So everybody needs them. But I think a lot of the fear could also be, what's the commitment? Like, can I really just come and volunteer once and then I'm done? Or am I on a list and now there's this expectation that I have to do it constantly, or always be hitting me up and things like that. But I don't know why it would be so low. I think it's great.
Now they know my name.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And sometimes that's great. That's a great feeling to know that you're needed. I do a lot of stuff with Catholic Community Services, and they do the bridging the gap with the food bank. And so we've gone to elementary schools where you just hand out like the weekend packets of food, and there's sort of like this list of people that they call that they know they can rely on, but they're still constantly looking for other people. And I think if more people hopped on, you wouldn't get called as much. But then it feels great to get that call, to know that you're needed to help that community.
So I'm glad you brought up Utah, because I also found the statistic for Utah.
Okay. It's higher than 25%, right?
It is, absolutely.
Okay.
It hovers at about 50%
Yeah.
in Utah, which I think is really, really interesting, actually. And the governor's office of economic development says that $3.5 billion are based in volunteer hours. So they quantify a volunteer hour by, a certain amount of money. Right. And they're saying that over $3.5 billion are raised annually by volunteer hours instead of having to pay for staff. And I think that's like astonishing. And like the impact that can have on organizations is huge.
I agree. And I think a lot of that has to do with the state of Utah and all the religious stuff that happens here. There's so much volunteering that takes place in that, and so much good community service in general. Those are all volunteer hours. If you're not getting paid and you're doing something, you're totally volunteering. And I think there's a lot of requirements and encouragement in Utah that you don't find other places for people to do that.
I have a quiz for both of you. Does anybody know who the #1 ranked city in Utah for volunteers is?
No. Provo, Ogden, Layton.
You can't just name off every city. You have to pick one, Danielle. That's not how the game works.
I don't know.
Levan, Utah.
I don't even know if that made the report.
No. Is that a place?
Yeah.
Oh,
do you want to know what's really interesting? Sorry, this is a really stupid Utah fact. It's Levan, which is navel backwards, and it's right in the center of Utah. They were clever when they named it.
It's a great nugget.
That is, we're going to keep, when I'm on Jeopardy, Dan, you will be my person that I call, just so you know.
Lifeline.
Except for they don't do that. Okay, so the winner is Provo, actually, at 53.2% of adults. Second place is Ogden at 52.2%.
I said that second.
And third place is Layton.
No, I said that. Oh, okay.
Not really.
It's Levan.
Third place is Levan, because all 10 of their residents volunteer every year. So
awesome.
So how do you get over? Because here's the thing. I'm just going to talk about me for a second, because it's about me. My mom will be mad because I'm talking about me again, and I'm going to get a phone call tonight, and she's going to go, "Stop talking about you. Talk about the guest." Anyway, we're going to talk about me. So my fear and anxiety would come from calling an organization or going on their website and clicking that little, "I want to volunteer," because like it feels a little bit like I'm in high school again, and people are going to judge me. Like, how do you get over that first initial thing to go do something like that?
I think that's the good part about being a volunteer, is if you go and you feel uncomfortable, you don't have to go back again. So you just have to, if you're truly passionate about that organization and you really want to be involved, you're going to make it work. If you feel awkward, then have that phone call him first and be like, "Hey, I'm coming. Is there somebody I can talk to as soon as I get there? What should I expect?" Don't feel like it just has to end with signing up on the website. Talk to other people who volunteer and just say, hey, next time you go somewhere, people constantly say, let me know when you're volunteering next. I'd love to come along. And I've engrossed many of people into doing things with me. And I think that helps too. Or if you want to do something, just find somebody to go with you. Even if it's not their community, just see if they'll come and help you out to get your, foot in the door.
I love the idea of calling ahead. That would, because I would be worried, like, what am I going to do? And what if they don't like me? What
shoes do I wear?
Yeah. What shoes do I wear? If I'm an OPA player, I'm always worried about what shoes I'm wearing. Oh, yeah. Dan, do you have a question for the unbelievably talented and amazing Danielle?
So I'm curious to find if there's so one of the things, as we've been talking about volunteering, one of the things that keeps coming up in my mind or in my brain is it feels kind of like when you were in college and you take all these different classes to find out what it is that you want to do. Because I think a lot of people volunteer, and I would argue that especially in Utah, sometimes the volunteering feels forced in some situations, religiously speaking. But when it comes to outside of that, to find your community, are there resources to find out what volunteer opportunities are available?
I mean, I think so. If you go to utahnonprofits.org, you can find volunteer stuff there along with job descriptions and things like that. But really, there's You Serve Utah as well, which is through the Governor's Office of Economic Development. That's the statewide organization. So you can sign up with them. And I believe other companies hey, we need volunteers, and they pick and choose, or they send stuff out. But a lot of times you just sign up for, if there's an organization, if you are passionate about puppies and cats, then get on Best Friends site and just see how you sign up for their newsletter, see what pops up. But anybody who's a nonprofit, as we all know, they're doing fundraisers, they're doing, there's always something where extra hands are needed. But arts organizations, along with athletic organizations, going through Goal Foundation and Ogden, and they do volunteering for organizations all over the state of Utah when it comes to races and things like that. Really just finding, a couple email lists to get on. And sometimes through your city, like Comcast Cares, they do things throughout the state as well. They have their day. A lot of cities have random cleanup days. It's Layton's going to get together and we're going to go clean up houses. Or, then there's the ones that everybody knows about, your Habitat for Humanity, your Goodwill, and the bigger organizations. So I think they're all out there. You just need to do a little research and see what sounds like a good fit time-wise, and go and do the work,
Yeah. And for everybody's to know, I posted in the comments of the videos the link to justserve.org, which is what you were speaking about, that's linked through the Utah Department of Economics. And they have on their website, they actually have volunteer opportunities from home. So there's people looking for volunteers that can do stuff from their home. They also have, other in-person volunteering. So there's tons of ways to get involved. And the state is a really great place to look and sort of go through all of that, like you were mentioning. What are your what do you think are the places in Utah that need the volunteers the most? I think that there's a lot of people volunteering for higher known places like the Ronald McDonald House and those places that people are just always going to. Is there a segment of organizations in Utah you think needs more volunteers that aren't getting them?
I don't know. I don't know if I could answer that, because with COVID, when it happened, there were so many places that just were not taking volunteers. For about a year, there was no volunteer opportunities. You couldn't go to the food bank and pack stuff, and you couldn't do these things. So I think companies are slowly getting back into being open for that. But during the holidays, I mean, it's a lot of communities will put on in Ogden, they do their the Christmas Village and things like that. And so they're looking for stuff. So I think going through the cities probably need quite a bit of help, but I don't know if I would know exactly. In my mind, they're all annually sensitive based on time of year. Like festivals, that's during the summer, and those are the people who need help at that time. During the holidays, it is your missions and everybody trying to do coat drives and shoe drives. But then nowadays they're like, we just want the cash. We don't want the stuff. So, I mean, I think your churches are kind of like a way to find who needs stuff, but Facebook's probably a good thing too. There's so many organizations that's just like volunteer groups on Facebook for people looking or saying, hey, I have hours, who needs what. So I'd like to think everybody's equal on who needs volunteers.
I love that story for you. I just did a little search on the justserve.org on Utah organizations that are looking for volunteers currently, and it's hundreds. I mean, there's so many. It's so interesting to me, and obviously, I think all of us on this chat understand how important volunteers are, but sometimes I feel like volunteers don't understand how important they are. And do you feel like there is a way for organizations to recognize their volunteers that helps keep them in a better way?
I do. And I've had those experiences where I'm like, I'm never going back to that festival or whatever, because I wasn't even not necessarily recognized with a thank you, but like, hey, I'm so-and-so and I run the volunteer group. But there was no community in that. But I think organizations who keep you on the list, they keep you in the loop, they offer you back when they do put out, a lot of times they'll just put out like a list of, hey, these are when we need volunteers. But instead of just putting out the list, hey, before I put out the list, I'm going to call X number of people and invite them personally. But I think a lot of organizations nowadays are really good about having volunteer awards, and they do recognitions. There's always like a pizza party after some big event happens or a wrap-up session. But I think those personal connections will help people feel important and want to stay involved.
So what I'm taking from this conversation so far is that if I volunteer, I'm going to get pizza and t-shirts.
There's a 98% chance both those statements are true.
Oh, sorry, Dan. I have got to leave OPA so I can go volunteer to get pizza and t-shirts.
There should always be swag, right?
Dan, you got something? Oh, it looked like you were going to talk. You're muted.
I have dogs.
Oh.
And now's the time when like lots of people are coming home. And so anytime a car drives down the street, they're like going crazy.
Yeah, we got
so
that.
Yeah. Sorry about the muting there. No, I was just scratching my head. I mean, I have lots of questions, but most of them are very personal.
Ask them. Now we're intrigued.
Now you have to.
Okay, Danielle, what's been your favorite volunteer activity?
I mean, I love doing the long-term things. Like I love being part of the Ogden Arts Festival and dealing with the artists. Like even when I'm not the director, I think that's the job I still would like to keep. Right now I'm doing both because I was like, I don't want to let that go because I love dealing with the artists. But based on longevity of what I've been doing, it's pouring beer at festivals. Like that's the one thing I'm like, I will always go back and pour beer at festivals. So, or if they need me to like do check-in and yell at people, I'm totally great with that too. Like,
so what's your favorite part about it though?
My favorite part, probably just the observation of people, and you always meet somebody new. You're never with the same people. And when people are drinking in that aspect and they come back, you get to know them. Like it's just, it's completely different than working in the kids zone. Let's just put it that way. So, and you feel like you're contributing and you're helping out, and that t-shirt,
I want to know if you have like a volunteer horror story. You don't have to say the organization or something, but like things that went wrong.
I don't feel like things that went wrong, but like an organization I was like, I'm done with. There was one festival I signed up and I had been with for years. And then I was like, oh, I'll just sign up for like a general. Usually I would do beer, but I'll sign up for general. As long as they don't put me in the kids zone, I'm fine at that one. And they put me in the kids zone at that one. And it was it was hard. Like the projects for these kids were so hard. Like I was 35 years old and I cannot do this project that they were having these kids do. That was a horror zone. Like drop your kid off, you'll see them in 3 hours because building this marionette is cool, but it's so hard. Never again. Never again.
Tell us about relationships you've made while volunteering.
Oh, so many. Some of my best friends currently have all been people I've met through volunteering and in the arts. Especially when you stick to a project and you've been doing it so long and you've kind of come through the ranks with these people. Yeah, I mean on some of the boards I serve on, like I just officiated a wedding to some people I met volunteering. I've been at weddings of people who I serve on boards with, and that was the only way I was going to ever connect with these groups. So, and then in dealing with artists nowadays, like those are my people. I'm not an artist, but I'm just infatuated with all of them at talent and who have creativity. But relationships have gone a long way, and especially in getting me recommendations, and I can use as references and things like that. I think it always helps. So
when I volunteered for an organization for a few years, I had a similar situation where a good friend and I came up sort of together in the organization, and the very first year we created this code that we would use on the radios so that people wouldn't know what we were talking about, but we would say, I'll meet you at the Pink Flamingo, and it was like our code to go to our secret meeting spot so that we could like talk about people without them hearing it on the radio.
See, that's great.
My favorite volunteering memory, and I still use it to this day. Whenever I see them, I always still talk about, let's meet at the Pink Flamingo. So anyway, I don't know. That's just my little story about this whole thing.
Well, where was the Pink Flamingo?
Well, the first year it was decor. It was decor at the gala or something we were doing. And then from then on, it never existed again. But we always like created a spot. Like when we first got there, we'd be like, okay, this is our spot. When we say, and everybody would be like, there's no Pink Flamingo. What are they talking about? And we were like, I don't know. It's so weird. I don't know. I did get a t-shirt. Yes. And there wasn't pizza, but there was a party with food after. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Pizza's become overrated. So now people try to do cooler things, but
yeah, like charcuterie. Is that how you say it?
I don't know. Large size Lunchables, like that.
Yes, large adult Lunchables. Yes. Yeah.
Yes. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
All right. Well, Danielle, before we let you go, give one last plea for people. Like, why should they get involved? Why is volunteering important in Utah?
I mean, obviously it's 50% important, or, more than anywhere else, but volunteering, again, it helps you find the community. The older you get, the harder it is to connect with people and meet new people. And that's just the perfect outlet to make those things happen. And you feel like you're contributing, and you always get something back when you help produce something and make things happen. So just find an organization you like and do it. I'm pretty sure OPA accepts volunteers. So, there's one right there.
Nice plug, Danielle. All right, Danielle, well, you think you're awesome. Thanks for joining the conversation today. And
anytime.
We're going to send you out into the abyss of video places. I don't know what happens when you disappear from this place, but
we shall see. I will go and conquer all my people, because I am.
Bring a t-shirt and pizza.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Bye, Danielle.
Thank you.
Bye, Danielle.
Okay, so I have a couple things to say before we end this conversation. Number one, that was a really good conversation, and it makes me want to volunteer. Like, I need to get more involved. In fact, I am going to email Danielle and say, the next time you go to pour beer, I want to go, because that sounds fun. I want to meet new people and pour beer and like talk about things. And I go down.
See, you want to do that, and I'm thinking, oh, look, there's ways I can volunteer from home. That's what I want to do.
I really thought you were going to say, I can run a kids zone.
No. I mean,
but the other thing that I think
I don't know if I'm well suited for that responsibility.
I love children a lot, but I could not build marionettes. Like, I wouldn't be a thing that I would do.
I would just be one of these
You
children.
can't see Danielle's camera. It's still on. I can see it and nobody else can. And her reactions are just priceless to all this conversation. It's like, we need to have like an after the show camera that shows what I'm seeing. But one of the other things I think is so interesting is coming out of COVID, how great it is to start looking for a community again, because so many of us spent so much time in our houses or in our little bubbles without friends and without a purpose. And I think volunteering would be a great way to get back involved in the world and do these things.
You know what? Now I've thought of a really great question for Danielle.
What is it?
Well, so here's something that I think of, right? And I think it especially pertains to art groups and things like that. That I wonder if sometimes people feel like you have to know something about what you want to volunteer for. Like people who may come and see or go to art galleries think, well, but I'm not an artist, so how could I volunteer there? And so the question would have been, do you have to know things in order to volunteer for those places? Now, I think we could potentially answer that by saying no. There's always,
or we could let her answer it.
Still here. No.
So you've done all that volunteering in all these different aspects. Like, I think about stuff that I used to do, and we used to go to the animal shelter and just walk dogs, right? And so the question was, have you ever been in a volunteer situation where like they have requirements in order for you to volunteer, of requirements of knowing what to do and how to do it, or anything like that?
I have not come across anything like that. I think if you have a minute amount of interest in that organization, they will find a volunteer position for you. And that's also how you go and learn. I didn't know anything about the art community. I didn't know anything about after school programs for LGBTQ kids, but that just seemed like a place that needed help. I don't run, but I can set up fencing for marathons, like I don't think it matters. You just have to have the interest and the passion to want to be involved and help out with whatever their goal and their cause is.
Okay, bye again.
Bye.
See,
yeah, that was a good question. Imagine if you had that when we actually had Danielle.
Right? I mean, can you imagine? And that was the thing. Like, I'm sitting here and I was about to say, yeah, volunteer, because you don't have to know. And then I was like, but that would have been so much better coming from the volunteer expert, because my volunteer experiences isn't huge and certainly not as wide as Danielle's. So I'm glad that she was still on so that she could come back and enlighten me post interview.
Well, I think that one of the things I really like about our weekly chats is I'm learning a lot personally, and even since our chat with like Mandy, where we talked about sustainability, I've really been focusing more about looking for ways to be more sustainable. And now with this chat, for sure, I'm going to be looking for more ways to get involved outside at other organizations, because I think it's important. And I think that, like Danielle said, creating a community for yourself is so important as well. So
it's true.
Anyway, as we always like to say at the end of these chats, go see live theater. It matters. Theater matters. It's important. Live theaters need your help now more than ever. So whether it be at OPA or any theater, please support the arts and go see live theater. And next week, we should have Josh Penzel. Fingers crossed. It's really happening next week. All right, Dan Tate, we'll see you when you come to the Rent preview. You can't cross your fingers? Wait, you can't cross your fingers? Why is that so hard for you?
I don't know. I can with my right hand, but my left hand, like...
Maybe you need... That's weird. Okay, whatever. All right, I'll see you in a few hours. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Bye. Bye.